Are you seriously asking me out? The words cut through the busy coffee shop like a knife. Every head turned to stare as Lily Chen burst into laughter so loud and cruel that customers stopped drinking their morning coffee to watch the show. "Oh my God, this is rich," she continued, pointing at the man standing in front of her with a bouquet of cheap flowers. "Ryan Walsh, the guy who cleans our offices and empties our trash cans, thinks he has a chance with ME?" Ryan's face burned red as whispers spread through the packed coffee shop. His hands shook as he held the wilted flowers he'd bought from a gas station. He wore his usual uniform, faded jeans with holes in the knees, a wrinkled shirt, and sneakers held together with duct tape. Lily, on the other hand, looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Designer clothes, perfect makeup, and jewelry that probably cost more than Ryan made in 6 months as a janitor at Phoenix Industries. "I work in the executive department," she said, her voice getting louder. "Do you know what that means? I make decisions that affect millions of dollars. I drive a car that costs more than you'll ever see in your lifetime." Other customers started recording with their phones. Ryan could see the videos would be all over social media within hours. His humiliation would be everywhere. "You probably live in some tiny apartment with 3 roommates," Lily continued, enjoying the audience she'd gathered. "You probably eat ramen noodles for dinner every night. And you actually thought, that I would want to date someone like you?" Ryan tried to speak, but no words came out. His throat felt like it was closing up. "Here's some free advice," Lily said, grabbing her expensive purse. "Stay in your lane. Rich girls like me don't date poor boys like you. It's not personal, it's just reality." As she walked toward the door, her high heels clicking on the floor, she turned back one more time. "Oh, and Ryan, maybe use that money you spent on those sad flowers to buy some better clothes instead. Just a thought." The coffee shop door slammed shut behind her. Ryan stood there, surrounded by staring faces and phone cameras, holding flowers that suddenly felt as heavy as rocks. What Lily didn't know, what nobody in that coffee shop knew, was that Ryan Walsh wasn't really a janitor. He was Ryan Phoenix, heir to the Phoenix Industries empire, the same company where Lily worked, the same company his family had built from nothing into $1 billion business. And as he stood there, watching the woman he'd fallen in love with walk away after destroying him in public, Ryan made a decision that would change everything. He was going to make her fall in love with him. But first, she was going to pay for what she'd just done. 3 months earlier, Ryan Phoenix had been living a completely different life. He woke up every morning in a mansion with 12 bedrooms and a view of the ocean. His closet was bigger than most people's apartments, filled with suits that cost more than cars. But on his 25th birthday, everything changed. "You're soft," his father Marcus Phoenix had said during their family dinner. "You've never worked a real day in your life. How can you run this company when you don't understand the people who work for it?" Ryan had tried to argue, but his father was right. Ryan had grown up with everything handed to him. Private schools, expensive cars, vacations to places most people only saw in movies. He knew nothing about real work or real struggle. "I'm sending you undercover," Marcus announced. "You'll work at one of our buildings as a regular employee. No one can know who you are. No special treatment. No family money. Just you, learning what it means to work for a living." "Dad, that's crazy." "It's necessary." His father's voice was final. "You have 6 months to prove you can handle the real world. If you can't, I'll give the company to your cousin instead." That threat hit Ryan like a punch to the stomach. He'd spent his whole life preparing to take over Phoenix Industries. The company was his birthright, his future, his everything. So Ryan Phoenix died, and Ryan Walsh was born. He moved into a tiny apartment in the worst part of town. The walls were thin, the heat barely worked, and he could hear his neighbors fighting every night. For the first week, he barely slept. He got a job as a janitor at Phoenix Industries, his own company. Every day, he cleaned toilets and emptied trash cans in the building his family owned. The other employees treated him like he was invisible. Nobody knew that the man mopping their floors was actually their boss's son. It was harder than he'd ever imagined. His hands got cut and rough from the cleaning chemicals. His back ached from bending over all day. He came home exhausted and sore, finally understanding what real work felt like. But then he met Lily. She was the first person at the company who actually talked to him like he was a human being. She would say good morning when she passed him in the hallway. She remembered his name. Once, when he was cleaning her office, she even asked if he wanted some coffee. "You don't have to do that," Ryan had said, surprised. "Of course I do," Lily replied with a smile that made his heart skip. "We're all just people doing our jobs. Your job is just as important as mine." That was the moment Ryan fell for her. Not because she was beautiful, though she was. Not because she was smart, though she definitely was. But because she treated him with kindness, when everyone else treated him like nothing. For 3 months, Ryan looked forward to their small conversations. He started timing his cleaning schedule so he'd be working near her office when she arrived each morning. He learned that she liked her coffee with extra cream, that she stayed late to help other employees, and that she donated part of her salary to help kids who couldn't afford school. She was perfect. She was everything he wanted in a woman. That's why, when he finally worked up the courage to ask her out, her rejection felt like getting hit by a truck. Now, sitting in his tiny apartment after the coffee shop disaster, Ryan stared at his phone. He could call his father right now. He could end this whole charade. He could go back to being rich, powerful Ryan Phoenix, and never see Lily Chen again. But that wouldn't be enough anymore. Ryan pulled out a notebook and started writing. He had 3 months left in his undercover mission, 3 months to make the woman who'd humiliated him fall desperately in love with him. And then, when she was head over heels crazy about poor Ryan Walsh, he would reveal the truth. He would show her that she had rejected a billionaire, that she had mocked the heir to a fortune, that the poor boy she'd been so cruel to was actually richer than her wildest dreams. Ryan smiled for the first time since the coffee shop incident. The revenge was going to be sweet. But as he planned his scheme, Ryan didn't realize something important. Playing with someone's heart was a dangerous game, and sometimes the person who gets hurt the most is the one who started it. Ryan's revenge plan was simple but brilliant. He would become exactly the kind of man Lily couldn't resist, not by revealing his wealth, that would be too easy. Instead, he would transform himself into someone so charming, so mysterious, and so appealing that she would be forced to notice him. The first step was his appearance. Ryan spent his first paycheck on new clothes, not expensive ones, but clothes that fit him properly. He got a haircut from a real barber instead of cutting it himself. He started working out in the tiny gym at his apartment complex. Within 2 weeks, the change was dramatic. Other employees who had ignored him for months suddenly started saying hello. Women began smiling at him in the elevator. But Lily didn't seem to notice. She walked past him in the hallways without even looking up from her phone. Ryan needed a bigger plan. That's when he discovered Lily's weakness. She was obsessed with a mysterious coffee shop regular. Every morning, Lily went to Brew and Bean, the coffee shop where she'd humiliated Ryan. But she wasn't just getting coffee. Ryan watched from across the street as she sat in the same corner booth, stealing glances at a man who came in every day at exactly 8:30 a.m. The man was everything Ryan used to be: expensive suit, confident walk, clearly wealthy. He ordered his coffee, read his newspaper, and left without ever noticing Lily staring at him. "She goes for the rich, mysterious type," Ryan muttered to himself. Perfect. Ryan's plan was devious but genius. He would become Lily's dream man, but not as Ryan Walsh, the janitor. He would create a completely new identity. Meet David Sterling, successful businessman, world traveler, and mysterious coffee shop regular. Ryan used his real family's money, money he wasn't supposed to touch during his undercover mission to rent an expensive car and buy designer suits. He created fake business cards and even set up a temporary office in a fancy building downtown. Every morning at 8:15 a.m., Ryan would change from his janitor clothes into his David Sterling disguise in a bathroom near the coffee shop. He'd walk into Brew and Bean looking like $1,000,000, order his coffee, and sit just close enough to Lily's table that she couldn't help but notice him. The plan worked immediately. On the first day, Lily looked up from her phone and stared. On the second day, she accidentally dropped her napkin near his table. By the third day, she was timing her coffee orders to be in line behind him. But Ryan wasn't ready to make his move yet. He wanted her to be completely obsessed first. For 2 weeks, he played the mysterious businessman perfectly. He would get phone calls about international deals. Actually, his friend Jake calling to discuss basketball. He would write in expensive notebooks, actually just drawing random lines. He even had fake meetings where he'd leave the coffee shop looking very important. Lily was hooked. Ryan could see her trying to overhear his conversations. She started dressing up more for her morning coffee runs. She even began arriving earlier, clearly hoping to spend more time in the same space as the mysterious David Sterling. Finally, Ryan decided it was time for phase 2. On a rainy Thursday morning, Ryan as David sat at his usual table when Lily walked in, soaking wet from the storm outside. She looked miserable, her hair was dripping, her makeup was smudged, and she'd clearly forgotten her umbrella. Ryan stood up immediately. "Excuse me," he said in the deeper, more confident voice he'd been practicing. "You look like you could use this." He handed her his expensive umbrella, one he'd bought specifically for this moment. "Oh, I couldn't," Lily said. But Ryan could see the hope in her eyes. "I insist. I've got a car right outside." Ryan smiled his most charming smile. "Besides, we can't have you catching pneumonia. The world needs more beautiful women, not fewer." Lily blushed deeply. It was the first time Ryan had ever seen her look genuinely flustered. That's very kind of you," she stammered. "David Sterling," Ryan said, extending his hand. "Lily Chen." When their hands touched, Ryan felt a jolt of electricity. But this time, it wasn't just his old feelings for her. This time, he also felt the thrill of his plan working perfectly. "Maybe I could buy you a proper coffee sometime," David said smoothly, "when you're not running from the rain." Yes, I'd like that." Ryan pulled out one of his fake business cards. "Call me." As he walked out of the coffee shop, leaving Lily staring at his card with a dreamy expression, Ryan felt like he was on top of the world. Phase 2 complete. She was interested in David Sterling. Now came the hard part, making her fall completely in love with him, all while she continued to work alongside Ryan Walsh, the janitor, every day, never knowing they were the same person. But as Ryan changed back into his janitor clothes in the bathroom, he caught sight of himself in the mirror. For just a moment, he didn't recognize the man staring back at him. The eyes looked harder, colder, more calculating. For the first time since starting his revenge plan, Ryan wondered if he was going too far. But then he remembered Lily's laughter in that coffee shop, her cruel words, the way she'd made him feel like nothing. She deserved everything that was coming to her. 2 weeks into dating David Sterling, Lily Chen was a completely different person. Ryan watched her at work every day, and the change was shocking. The confident, sometimes cruel woman who had humiliated him was gone. Instead, Lily seemed nervous, distracted, and constantly checking her phone for messages from her mysterious new boyfriend. "I can't concentrate on anything," she confessed to her coworker, Jessica, during lunch. Ryan was emptying trash cans nearby and heard every word. "He's just so perfect. I've never met anyone like him." Ryan felt a surge of satisfaction. His plan was working better than he'd dreamed. As David Sterling, he had taken Lily on 3 incredible dates. dinner at the city's most expensive restaurant, where he'd ordered wine that cost more than most people's rent, a helicopter ride over the city at sunset, arranged through his family's connections, a private art gallery showing, where he'd impressed her with knowledge about paintings he'd learned in his expensive private school. Each date had been carefully designed to make Lily fall deeper in love with David's wealth and sophistication, everything she'd said she wanted when she rejected Ryan Walsh. But something unexpected was happening to Ryan too. During their dates, when Lily laughed at David's jokes or looked at him with shining eyes, Ryan found himself forgetting about revenge. She was funny and smart and surprisingly vulnerable when she wasn't trying to protect herself. She told David about her childhood, her dreams, her fears about not being good enough. "I grew up poor," she'd confessed during their second date. "My parents worked 3 jobs each, just to pay rent. I swore I'd never be poor again. Sometimes I think that makes me shallow. Mean, even." Ryan had wanted to tell her she wasn't mean, that he understood, that he was falling in love with the real her. But David Sterling just nodded and ordered another expensive bottle of wine. The worst part was watching Lily at work. She'd become kinder, softer. She started bringing donuts for the cleaning crew. She remembered Ryan Walsh's name and always said, "Good morning." She even asked him about his weekend once. "Oh, you know," Ryan had mumbled, mopping the floor near her desk. "Nothing exciting. How about you?" "Actually, I had the most amazing date," she'd said, and her whole face lit up. "This guy David took me to see the symphony. I'd never been to anything like that before. It was magical." Ryan had been there. He'd seen her face during the music, the way she'd wiped away tears during the most beautiful pieces. It had been magical for him too. He'd almost forgotten why he was doing this. But then Monday came, and Ryan made a terrible mistake. He was cleaning the executive floor when he overheard Lily talking to her boss, Mr. Harrison, about a promotion she'd been hoping for. "I'm sorry, Lily," Mr. Harrison was saying. "We've decided to give the position to someone else, someone with a different background." Ryan knew what that meant. The Phoenix Industries executive team was full of rich kids who'd gotten their jobs through family connections. Lily, despite being brilliant and hardworking, didn't have the right connections. As David Sterling, Ryan could fix this with one phone call. His family owned the company. One word from him and Lily would get any promotion she wanted. But Ryan Walsh couldn't do anything except watch Lily's face crumble. "I understand," she said quietly. "Thank you for considering me." After Mr. Harrison left, Lily sat at her desk, staring at nothing. Ryan could see tears starting to form in her eyes. This was his moment. His chance to see her suffer like he'd suffered in that coffee shop. Instead, Ryan found himself walking over to her desk. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. Lily looked up, surprised that the janitor was talking to her. She quickly wiped her eyes. "Oh, Ryan. Yes, I'm fine, just work stuff." "Sometimes work stuff is the hardest stuff," Ryan said. "Want to talk about it?" For a moment, Lily looked like she might. Her guard was down. She was vulnerable and hurt, and needed someone to listen. "You're sweet," she said finally, "but you wouldn't understand. It's complicated executive stuff." The dismissal wasn't mean, but it stung anyway. Even now, even when she was being kind, she still saw Ryan Walsh as beneath her. That night, David Sterling called Lily. "You sound sad," he said in his fake, confident voice. "Just work problems. I didn't get a promotion I really wanted." "Their loss," David said smoothly. "Any company that doesn't recognize your worth doesn't deserve you." "That's easy for you to say," Lily replied, and there was an edge to her voice. "You're successful. You're rich. You don't know what it's like to work this hard and still get passed over because you don't come from the right family." Ryan's breath caught. She was right, but not in the way she thought. Maybe, David said carefully, but I know talent when I see it, and you're the most talented woman I've ever met. There was a long pause. When Lily spoke again, her voice was soft. David, can I ask you something? Would you still like me if I wasn't successful? If I was just ordinary? Ryan's heart stopped. This was the question that revealed everything. This was Lily asking if David Sterling would love her the way Ryan Walsh already did. Ryan started, then stopped. If he said yes, he'd be lying as David but telling the truth as Ryan. If he said no, he'd be honest as David but crushing the woman he was starting to realize he truly loved. Lily, he began, not sure which version of himself was about to answer. But before he could finish, his phone died. As Ryan stared at the black screen, he realized something terrifying. He wasn't sure if he was trying to make Lily fall in love with David Sterling anymore. The next morning, Ryan stood in front of the bathroom mirror at 6 a.m., holding two different outfits. In his left hand, the janitor uniform that represented Ryan Walsh, the man Lily had rejected and humiliated. In his right hand, the expensive suit that represented David Sterling, the man Lily was falling in love with. He had to choose who he was going to be today, and maybe forever. His phone buzzed with a text from Lily. David, I'm sorry about how I ended our call last night. I was being silly. Can we meet for coffee before work? I need to tell you something important. Ryan's stomach twisted. He'd been avoiding her calls since the phone died, trying to figure out what to say about her question. Would he love her if she was ordinary? The answer was yes, but admitting that would ruin everything. Ryan put on the janitor uniform and went to work, planning to change into David Sterling later. But when he got to Phoenix Industries, he found Lily waiting by the elevators, with tears streaming down her face. Lily? Ryan said, forgetting to keep his distance. What's wrong? She looked up, surprised to see the janitor talking to her again. Oh, Ryan, I think I messed up something really important. What happened? There's this guy I've been seeing. David. He's amazing, rich, successful, everything I thought I wanted. Lily wiped her eyes with her sleeve. But last night I asked him if he'd still like me if I wasn't successful, and he couldn't answer. The call just ended. Ryan's heart was pounding. Maybe his phone died? Maybe, but probably not. He probably realized I'm just some insecure girl who's not worth his time. Lily laughed bitterly. You know what's crazy? There was this other guy who asked me out a few weeks ago. Ryan Walsh, he works here too. And I was so cruel to him. So unbelievably cruel. Ryan couldn't breathe. Why? Because I was scared. He was sweet and kind. And when he looked at me, I felt like he saw something good in me. Something real. And that terrified me, because I've spent so long trying to be someone else. Lily covered her face with her hands. I rejected him because he was poor. How shallow is that? How terrible does that make me? People make mistakes when they're scared, Ryan managed to say. I wish I could find him and apologize. Tell him I was wrong. Tell him that maybe being with someone who sees the real you is more important than being with someone who has money. Ryan's hands were shaking. This was it. This was the moment he'd been planning for. Lily was vulnerable, full of regret, realizing that she'd been wrong to reject Ryan Walsh. This was when he was supposed to reveal the truth and watch her world crumble. But looking at her tear-stained face, Ryan couldn't do it. What if? He said slowly. What if you could find Ryan Walsh? What would you say to him? I'd say I'm sorry. I'd say I was scared and stupid, and I took it out on him. Lily looked at Ryan with desperate eyes. I'd say that I think I might have made the biggest mistake of my life. The elevator arrived with a ding. As the doors opened, Ryan saw his reflection in the polished metal. He looked tired, conflicted. Nothing like the confident man who'd started this revenge plan. Lily, he said as she stepped into the elevator. What if I told you that people aren't always who they seem to be? What do you mean? The elevator doors started to close. Ryan had seconds to decide. He could let the doors close and continue his charade. Keep being David Sterling, the fake perfect man, and Ryan Walsh, the invisible janitor. Keep lying to the woman he loved about everything that mattered. Or he could stop the doors. Tell her the truth. Risk everything for a chance at something real. Ryan's hand shot out, stopping the elevator doors. My name isn't Ryan Walsh, he said, stepping into the elevator with her. Lily stared at him in confusion. What? And David Sterling isn't real either. I don't understand. My name is Ryan Phoenix. My family owns this company. I've been living undercover as a janitor for the past 6 months because my father wanted me to understand what real work was like. Ryan's words came out in a rush. And David Sterling was fake. I created him to get revenge on you for humiliating me in that coffee shop. The elevator was silent except for the humming of the motor. Lily's face went through a dozen emotions: confusion, realization, shock, and finally, devastation. You're both of them? She whispered. Yes. The janitor who asked me out? And the businessman I've been dating? Yes. So, everything was a lie? Ryan felt like his heart was being torn apart. The feelings weren't a lie. I fell in love with you as Ryan Walsh, and I fell in love with you again as David Sterling. The only thing that was fake was everything else. Lily pressed herself against the elevator wall, as far from Ryan as possible. You played with my heart for months. You watched me cry over David Sterling when you were David Sterling. You listened to me feel guilty about Ryan Walsh when you were Ryan Walsh. Her voice was getting louder. You sick, twisted. I know how it sounds. How it sounds. How it sounds. Lily was shouting now. You're a billionaire who pretended to be poor, then pretended to be someone else entirely, all to mess with my head. The elevator stopped at the 15th floor with a ding. But I love you, Ryan said desperately as the doors opened. Everything I felt was real. Lily stepped out of the elevator and turned back to face him. Her eyes were filled with tears, but her voice was steady. You want to know the difference between us, Ryan Phoenix? When I hurt you, it was because I was scared and stupid. When you hurt me, it was on purpose. You planned it. You enjoyed it. Lily, please. The saddest part is, I was falling in love with both of you, the sweet janitor and the mysterious businessman. But neither of them was real, was he? You're just a spoiled rich boy who couldn't handle being rejected. As the elevator doors closed between them, Ryan saw his reflection again. But this time, he also saw the truth. He'd gotten his revenge. Lily was devastated, heartbroken and humiliated just like he'd planned. But he'd also lost the only woman he'd ever truly loved. And as the elevator carried him up to the executive floor, where his father was waiting to hear about his 6 months of learning about the real world, Ryan realized something that made his blood run cold. He'd become exactly the kind of man who deserved to be rejected. The question now was it too late to become the kind of man who deserved to be loved? Like this story if it kept you on the edge of your seat. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest heart-stopping stories of love, betrayal, and second chances that will leave you speechless. Don't miss out on the latest episodes.